as we have heard from all the speeches this morning, Kenya is really at a critical moment for public policy. And as the country continues to address complex developing challenges, ranging from health system pressures, youth unemployment, gender inequality, digital transformation, and all the other issues that we are dealing with on a daily basis, the question about making the right policies and laws that are grounded in evidence is all the more important. Today, we would like to chat about all these issues, learning from people that actually make the laws. Some of us, especially folks on my right, we just rant on social media and nothing turns into anything. But folks on my left, when they rant in the House, things actually move. Can we give a hand to our MPs? Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite a few people that will be talking about the issues that I listed earlier.
Evidence, and I'm glad you talk about both evidence and data, because when you talk about evidence, you're talking about qualitative. When you're talking about data, you are talking about quantitative. And when you're talking about quantitative, you are talking about equality. When you're talking about evidence, you're talking about equity. So it's about Chapter 2, Article 10 of the Constitution, which is the values of the Constitution of Kenya. You cannot further the values of the Constitution of Kenya without evidence. How do you further equality? How do you further equity? And maybe to just give a very small summary within the 1 minute is, one example is recently when the president visited Homa Bay, and a lot of people saw that there was a lot of work going on in Homa Bay. And a lot of people said, why Homa Bay? I give you data. Why Homa Bay? Because since independence, Homa Bay town, which ranks almost pari passu with other towns in the country, has hardly seen any tarmac. So why not? If you find the data showing that it deserves, then you put the money to it. If you go to Turkana, the same thing. Does Turkana deserve tarmac? Does it have? It doesn't have. What about healthcare? It's the same thing. So, and in there are certain aspects which are not amenable, say, for instance, to data. Like, why do we include women in leadership? It talks to, maybe we may actually look at the issue of data, but we also look at the values around why women need to be included. So you need evidence. We need evidence that when women are included, that there is a difference. And perhaps that is something that the Parliamentary Research Committee would help us with, department would help us with, that when women are in Parliament, I can assure you the women who are sitting here, they talk a lot about the things that men don't talk about. Men, when you listen to the budget, they will be looking at where their deals, where they can get their deals. The women will be talking about health. They will be talking about, the nurturing and caring roles that we normally do. So we'll be talking about issues that men don't normally address, and that's why you need inclusion. So that's why, for me, it's evidence and data are important.
Tim, do you agree?
Yes, I do agree. And
you cannot be impeached, right?
I'm confident about that.
You're unimpeachable.
I'm pretty confident about that. I do agree, for the sole reason, at independence, we set out to tackle basically three things. That was illiteracy, poverty, and disease. And those three things still continue to be a burden to us, affecting women more disproportionately than any other category in society. When I look, for example, when I look at the budget and what we are aspiring to do in the next financial year, my appeal to our parliamentarians is, let's ensure that health is getting adequate resources. I have not seen for instance, the pending bills for NHIF, 33 billion shillings. Health is a cash flow business, whichever way you look at it. And since we SHA came to life, I will give a few statistics. We have 19,919 registered facilities in the country. Out of that number, government, both at national and county level, has about 6,973 facilities. The rest, that is 13,103, are in the private sector, or rather than state actors. SHA has so far had a claims value of about 60 billion Kenya shillings. I think last week I heard the CS say that he has paid out about 48 billion. That tells us that we still have, I think, 12 billion. And what is happening is the debt is not reducing as we thought it would. And that is what the evidence is showing. Which are the services that are getting affected first? Will be primary care services, oncology services, renal services, and surgical services. Those ones are the ones that first take a hit. Of that 60 billion shilling figure, 40 billion is with non-state actors. The rest, that is the 20 billion, is in government facilities. What that tells us, or tells me, is of the registered 9,000 facilities under SHA, 5,065 are government facilities. But you can see the claims value is skewed towards the private sector. So the evidence there is either a high value services that are offered in private sector, or they do have a higher per patient, per bed, per unit time turnover. Whereas government is enjoying higher bed occupancy, on the other side there is more efficiency. The opportunity there for me is we must keep our governors accountable, because this is a big business opportunity if you are to ask me. If you are just to streamline our services and how we are submitting our claims, then the 405 billion figure that has been allocated can easily, we can easily add another 100 billion by own source revenue for counties. That is what the evidence is showing us. And we can use that to apply pressure and that interaction with industry, which we've not had, to further, especially good governance in healthcare.
You're killing us with statistics. In one sentence, what are you telling us?
What I'm saying is, as the Gen Zs say, we must leave the talking stage and just get to the crux of the matter. We must work with synergy. We don't have a choice on that. And whatever is good and working on the private sector, we use it. Whatever is good and working on the government side, we adopt it as well. I don't see a reason why, and the people who should have been in the room are commercial banks as well. I don't see a reason why I am putting up a CT scan machine a kilometer away from a government facility, yet SHA is reimbursing us the same. I don't see a reason why.
That's very deep. For people that are tweeting, I think that's a tweetable point. I need to tell you what to tweet. Dr. Mbewa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Moderator, you allow me to make a comment and then go to the question. Sorry,
Please go ahead. Go ahead. I have not set the rules yet.
I needed to have acknowledged that I come from Homa Bay and I'm overrepresented here. My MP is in the room, my women rep is in the room, and Senator Gola is also from my village. So now back to the question. Our governance structure actually would require evidence, in that working with evidence will take away emotions, populism, and all that from policy development, and translating the policy to laws, so that if say a honorable member or a member of the committee is pushing for something to be done in their constituency, which actually is their work, that's what they should do. There should be a way of checking whether that is the priority how many of such facilities are there compared, because we are drawing from the same pot? Would it have been good if we did a road for you and not a health facility, so that we take health facility? So in short, I'm saying we need evidence to support the development, because it takes away emotions, populism, and all that, lobbying, so that whatever these policies we draw, the laws we make, would help in developing the whole country, as shown by data and evidence. That would be my take.
I thought emotions, populism are the coolest things that drive this country. I don't know here, but in my country, sensationalism sometimes drives laws. Does that happen here in Kenya? Our honorable MPs? It doesn't happen?
It happens.
It does happen, yeah. Let me tell you a very short story. A few years ago, I was privileged to be invited to speak to a parliamentary committee on health, to talk about health financing. And I presented the status quo, and one of the MPs there thought we were just making up numbers. And he put me on a corner. So I just Googled numbers for his constituency and divided by the population and told him how much they were allocating to his constituency. He was very mad. He was like, no, I need to verify. He verified right in their WhatsApp messages, and then he realized, I think we're giving a raw deal to our people. But for him, he didn't understand that, because he thought by having a country that says $39 allocated per person for Malawi, that's okay. But what was going to his constituency was literally under $1, like far under $1. The next thing we saw on the newspaper was him advocating for more money to the health sector. So I think emotions sometimes help to drive things. Dr. Nyawira, what does this mean to you? We are asking why it is important for evidence, data and evidence to drive, say, decision-making and development. And we've heard Honorable Mili describe the different aspects. Honorable, I didn't know those dimensions. I didn't think in those dimensions. I'm an economist myself. I just focus on the numbers. But that was super, super helpful. But Nyawira, how do you relate to that, and linking to what Dr. Mbewa and Dr. Tim have said?
Thanks, Arthur. I think for me, I just want to go back to, I think, one of the things that our MCs talked about. She asked a question around what's the population of the country that's below 20 years of age? And I think we agreed it was 40%. And then from there, I just want to also, bring out another important fact that the mean age of this country is around 17. So we are all dinosaurs in this room, as far as that statistic is concerned. But what does this mean? This means, in the context of government and data and evidence, is that the only way we can continue to have public trust in the people that we lead, either at the constituency level and in the places of influence that we all are, is ensuring that then the data and the evidence that we're using are accurate. Gone are the days when we have a PDF sheet or something that was written in the Nation that people would not have a way of verifying. We've just talked about you Googling, Arthur, very quickly and getting this information. I don't know about Malawi, but the youth in this country are adepts at using AI. They will have your bank details in 5 minutes. We call it kusalimiwa. But the point I'm trying to make here is they're also able to astutely be able to critically look at the data and the rationale for the decisions that we're making. And so without data and evidence, if the decisions we make and the policies we build are not firmly embedded in data, then we are setting ourselves for failure, because we have good intentions. We all want to ensure that we have a prosperous country. But then if it is based on institutions that do not have public trust, then I think we will not be able to implement much, because our people will often reject some of the great interventions you might want to put in place, but if they were not built on a rationale that they identify as sound evidence, then we will also have, failed the test. So I think that's how I see it from my perspective.
Honorable, you just said you're one of the longest serving members of parliament in Kenya. How has that been? How have you seen the evolution in terms of people demanding more and more evidence in order to make decisions at constituency level, county level, or even at the national level? And also, you being a lawyer, definitely this is an element that is already embedded you. So maybe you don't represent a regular member of parliament, but how have you seen the culture change in terms of demanding more and more evidence? Are you using the research department? Are people requiring more data before they can push for an agenda?
Well, I can say that because we are having an increasingly younger, more educated, more informed population, whether they couch it in terms of data or evidence, it still sums up to the same thing, fair about it. But I go to every single institution and document the state of every institution, so that I know this school has 4 classes that with broken windows, a floor that needs repair, and blah, blah, blah. So when they were telling me you don't know about us, I just tell me your school. Like I know where Martin comes from. I tell him what the situation of the school is, what NGCDF has done in that school. I know where it comes from. We put 2 new classrooms. The school nearby is already getting a bus. I know. And we have over 140-something schools. So you just go and tell them, this is the state of your school. This is what your village has got. This is what your sublocation has got. This is what this area has got. Or in one case where I went and people were inciting the public, and I just gave them the figures from 2012, I think, to last year. And, they had nothing more to say. Everybody was just like, okay, we do understand, but can you consider this? Can you consider that? So with young people and with information, people want to know more. People want to, it's not like where people would do rubber stamp. And I think sometimes as leaders, we fail by not understanding and appreciating the evolving nature of our population. We still are stuck 20 years back, where you had a population that you told things and they say, yes, sir. This is not a yes, sir kind of population. This is a population that wants reason, that wants logic, that want to understand what you're doing. And when you engage with them, it makes sense to them. So that's why it's important that in everything that you do, there must be logic, there must be data, and there must be evidence of what you are doing. And a lot of times, the government does have that. But a lot of times, we tend to be overly defensive for no reason. There are things, like I can give you an example. When we went, for instance, I'll give Homa Bay because it's the latest. We went to Homa Bay and we did the affordable housing. And the affordable housing unit is just put next to a place that is not upmarket. I don't want to use other terminology, but it's called Shauri Yako. And if you are to upgrade, some of the people in Shauri Yako have moved there, and if you are to upgrade Shauri Yako and that everybody there can have, that's kind of very modern and very decent housing, then we'd actually be meeting their constitutional right, socio-economic rights, which is in the Constitution. Yesterday I heard somebody saying, it's not the duty for the government to supply housing. What is socio-economic rights? Housing is a socio-economic right. What I didn't like at first was that, for instance, at housing, there was a notion that we are going to do this housing in the rural. And for me, evidence would tell you that you don't need them in the rural. But now you see the government has moved to doing them in TTIs and others. So that responds to that need. But when you go to urban centers, then it makes sense. So those for me, and then if you look at evidence-based, I would ask them to change in terms of evidence-based so that they don't make them like modern, like sort of modern slums, where you have a housing unit of thousands of people. Then you are looking at the issue of possibility of child abuse, possibility of, higher crime rate and all that. But otherwise, for me, we must look at the evolving nature of our population of young people in making decisions. And perhaps just in concluding, I think she just talked about how when we make our plans, how we need to factor in issues such as those numbers and all that. And in Kenya, we always take, we look at our population, the population growths and the demographics. And we keep saying every year that we are soon going to have a youth bulge. But we had it like 5 years ago. We already had the youth bulge. I don't know what we are waiting. We are going to have a youth explosion. We already did have a youth explosion. What did we do about a youth explosion? We did not plan well. That is a reality. We knew all along, we didn't plan. And that is why we have so many young people who are extremely intelligent, who are jobless. Then we get shocked if they stay most of the time attacking us on social media. What do you expect them to do? So with that evidence that we had, we should have planned better, almost 5-10 years ago.
So for the audience, this is not a lecture. If you think...
Thank you for this.
Honorable, just 1 second. If you think you have a point to make, a question to ask, or even to argue, just raise your hand. I'll recognize you. We are going to make it a conversation from here onwards. Is that okay? Honorable, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this very insightful discussion. I think the inputs shared by the panelists are value-adding. And I think the discussion is also on time. Because I think by this discussion, if it would continue at several levels, we are addressing a very core issue in this particular country. Because we have a very big link between evidence and the practice. And I think actually the issue is not that there is no evidence. Because if you look at every government ministry, they are generating data, evidence. But who should consume that particular data? I think the link between whoever is generating the data and the consumers is it's not even weak, it's non-existent. Because I'm even referring to what Honorable Mille, who I respect very much, because she's a very senior member of parliament in Kenya. You know, if you say what happened to Omambe the other day, there is nobody who did not know that Omambe has been derived for years. The evidence did not come last week. Yeah, that everybody knew, even me, I knew how far I have been to Omambe. But now you need to be in a particular position for action to take place. It is personalized, it's individualized. When we have government agencies that are not addressing the needs of the Kenyans, but are addressing individual needs, that is the big question. And this needs a lot of goodwill. It's not that they are idiots, they are doing it intentionally. I think it has a lot, it is really in terms of politics and ethnicity. People think very limited. They think about their wives and their children. They don't even think about the children next door. That is the kind of leadership we are beginning to have in this country, right from the village up to the national level. And unless we have a change, I tell you, we'll have these forums until the sun sets. And I'm not even seeing the willpower among the politicians, because every politician wants to take advantage. If you look even at the budget now, you'll find areas where they know the problem is water, but they have not put it there. Wamepeleka water mahali kuko na maji because uko karibu na kwao. Sorry, I'm using Kiswahili and English. So even when I sat here, I almost walked out. Actually, it's by grace of God, I'm here for this minute. Because I said, this is, we cannot sit here taking tea and mandas, and with the level of intelligence here, and we are not moving cards anywhere. Because you move a card, it is returned back further than where you found it. So in my own opinion, panelists and participants, we need something drastic if we are to put this country on the right track for the benefit of the Kenyans. So this, I think the idea is good. But, oh God, where are the channels of communication? Like when this organization, I've not even gotten your name. You said you are doing such great work. And I was asking, where are the outputs? Where are the outcomes? With what impact? Tell us why you are not having the impact you expect. Because that is where the gap is. If you continue spending money generating data that is not consumed, hiyo ni kutoa maji kwa ocean to put in a pod. I hope I'm not being very strong. You removing water from the ocean, then you put it in a karai. And I think that is zero sum. So I talk this with a lot of passion. I left development work. I was a consultant in area of development. And when I was coming to parliament, I thought I'm coming to a place where when we make decision, we institutionalize change across the country. I tell you, I'm very disappointed. Extremely. Actually, after 6 months, I was thinking, is there a resignation? Until now, I've gotten used to the culture now I'm talking my heart because it has been very painful. I realized, I thought when I came here, we would sit down, make a decision, and the whole decision runs across Kenya. And I thought after making 5-10 decisions, I will see Kenya different. I am 3 years, and I doubt how many decisions I make at national level that has impact. I'm very happy in my constituency. At least I'm making decisions that have impact. That is the only place I can actually congratulate myself. So, panelists, with all due respect, let's remove the glasses and face the reality without apologies, because that is where the sun started beating us. Thank you.
That's very powerful, Honorable.
Very powerful.
For those that are tweeting, that's something tweetable.
Feel you, because that's how I felt when I first came to Parliament, and I wanted to resign because I felt like, what nonsense am I doing here? Especially when you come from the development sector. But change comes slowly, and I hope we'll get time, and I'll tell you that there is change I have seen in 17 years I was in Parliament. I was sharing with my class because I went back to uni. I'm doing my PhD again in development studies on leadership and governance. And one of the things that I was telling my class yesterday is their footprints. And I can tell you what I came to do. I'm at 80%. The class I was giving them a more modest feel of what I have done in Parliament. So yes, it gets really frustrating, especially if you are genuine, if you are committed, and if you want to see change. Because you sometimes feel, even if you checked my update last week when we were in Homa Bay, everybody was asking me, Willie, what is this? I said 10 steps forward, 50 backwards. So sometimes you feel like you're making 10 and 50 back. But then you overcome and then make progress again. So feel encouraged. Thank you.
Where we are not short of data and evidence. We are not short of that. But does that get to people that need to make decisions? That's a very important point that I think I will have Prof. Joachim, being an academician, to tackle, because research institutions, academic institutions are doing this on a daily basis. Does it get to them? And then there's the other part, which is focusing on research communication. What avenues are we using? And for that one, I will invite you, Nyawira, to just talk a little bit on how that can be done better?
I said my name is Joshua Musimi, not Musioka, so I give you some 60%. I work for the UN Women. This is the United Nations entity for gender equality and women empowerment. And one of the things I wanted to, throw in as we go through the discussions and debate is on the issue of evidence, is the issue of gender data. We've been talking about data, and it's only Honorable Millie was mentioned about equality, came close to what I have in my heart. I've been working with the government in my previous life. I've worked with the government for close to 30 years, and now with the UN Women, but mainly on data. I started with the Central Bureau of Statistics when it was that name, now Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And I have a program which I'm leading and working with the National Bureau of Statistics to ensure that we have gender data which is available and that can be used. And one of the key areas is access and uptake. And the discussions we are talking about is about the use of data, and particularly gender data for decision making. I hear my MP, I come from Makueni, and Kiamba, I come from Boni, but I feel you, because this is what have been happening to many of us. We do not understand whether and I was asking Madoko here, just whispering, and Madoko was my schoolmate those years, and I was asking whether do members of parliament use data? And this resonates well with the sentiments you are bringing up front. I get half of the answer, but what I want to say is that it will be important for us to articulate data into our decision making. I want to challenge some of the members of parliament here. In your introduction, you said you are members of parliament from Meru County, but then you omit the constituency that we sent you to parliament to represent, and these are the women. Because you are women representative from Meru County or West Pokoti, you should not be ashamed of that, because you are representing a minority. Daktari, when you are presenting bullet number 3, I remember very well, you talked about the marginalized groups, and women are some of the marginalized groups. And therefore, when we talk about gender data, then we are trying to see to what extent are the women's left behind. I'm championing for data for the country to be able to, monitor and report on both national and international obligations, the SDGs being one of the international obligations. And we are looking at different sectors, talk about health, what Dr. Theuri talked about, talk about education, talk about agriculture, and the data is there. And therefore, when we are talking about policy and decision making, we should back it with data, but not just data, gender data. Because gender is about both men, boys, girls, women and girls. So that when we are budgeting, we are saying, what initiatives do we have? You did a study on, is it the Women Enterprise Fund or something, Daktari? This is just a tip of the iceberg. It's just a drop in the ocean. I don't want to say taking some water from the ocean to the, like my older sister here said, but it's about trying to see out of the 4.2 trillion budget, what is the WESO fund or the National Government Affirmative Action Fund? Any percentage, it cannot be, it is 0.000 something. Because when you look at a few millions out of trillion, then it doesn't make sense. And therefore, what I might say, I'm saying that the budget we are making, we need to look at it with a lens, a gender lens. Because I was looking for Honorable Pasaris. She talked about and said, oh my God, they are all men.
Please be winding up.
The context I'm trying to bring is that we need to bring out the issue of gender into this. so that whenever we are doing a budget, we need to be able to see. Budget is usually gender blind because we make assumptions that budget will take care of men and women. But the needs of the women, and I've listened to Honorable Millie speak in Parliament, he says, I don't want to cite you, but some of the comments you made to some male counterparts in Parliament are they do not understand what it means to be a woman. And I quote, in quotes. And therefore, we should go deeper and see the evidence provided by the data and plan accordingly for this population that is left behind. Maybe in terms of leadership, in terms of education, in terms of agriculture, in terms of everything. Let me stop there.
She doesn't feel like there's no data. Data is there, but does it get to the right people? Do you think a member of parliament will go to a journal, look for a journal, and then read the whole document to get an understanding of what is happening? No way. Where are we getting it wrong as think tanks who are generating data for our honorable members, our policymakers, and key decision makers? I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. So please stay within the time.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say 3 things which will answer what you've asked and maybe other issues. The first thing is that there is a disconnect between the research community and the policy-making community. And we in the academia feel like we are not contributing enough. We can even offer ourselves for free to support you. We will come and do the research for you and give you evidence. And now that we are talking with KEWOPA members, there are a lot of issues. I mean, reproductive health, sexual reproductive health and rights and so on. There are so many issues concerning women's health, reproductive health and so on. We have the evidence, but the interaction is not there. If you're thinking of reproductive technology, for example, which Honorable Mabona has been really talking about, if you're thinking about Linda Mama, health financing for maternity care and all this, we have the evidence of what works and what does not work. And it is different from what we are seeing in policy. So I'm offering myself and fellow academicians to work with you. Form your small team. We will help you get the most current evidence that you can use to argue your case in Parliament. And we will make sure that we popularize that evidence through other channels so that your parliamentary seat is also not jeopardized, because it is important. That's my first. Second, okay. Second is public participation. I feel it is a wasted opportunity. Research is about getting views of people or, evidence from other ways. The way we do public participation, if we did it well, for example, we wouldn't have had the Gen Z agenda, what we had on Parliament, inversion and so on. If we can use public participation scientifically, we will avert a lot of problems. And I think it's upon Parliament to see how to do that. I will not say more. And finally, whoever funds research sets the agenda. Most of the research we do now is not funded by government. It is funded by donors, it's funded by private sector. There is an act of Parliament on science, technology, and innovation, which says that 2% of GDP should go towards research. Only 0.8% currently is used on research, out of which half of it is not even from government. So the evidence you use, ask yourself, whose agenda is it? Who paid for it? It may not be the right evidence. We have to put money there, and then we will get the right evidence which will inform the policies we want. Thank you.
It does seem to me like there's a need of a platform or a space where evidence generators are interacting directly with those that need evidence. And I would also say sometimes researchers have this tendency to think that what they see as a problem and they're trying to solve, or their research is trying to solve, is what maybe parliamentarians or policymakers need. isn't research supposed to be more responsive to the demands? How do we make sure that if Honorable Miri says we have this issue, but we don't have evidence currently, how do we make sure that the evidence is generated in time and makes itself to her table for her to make a decision?
For opening up, I won't call it Pandora's box, but giving us a space to talk about the elephant in the room. I think candidly, all the speakers in some way or form have tried to touch on this issue. We've talked about data and policy, policy and data, this is what it can do. But then the elephant in the room was, if this is what it can do, why is it not happening? And I think that is what you've allowed us to discuss. And I think for me as I sit here, I am feeling freed. I am feeling freed to be able to then jump into that conversation, because then I feel like there's goodwill for us to have it in this room. So, in the same spirit of being candid, I think one thing we need to think about is, I think some of the barriers that we see is critical thinking. And let me just get into this a little bit. When we have the data that we talk about that we say is available, we have data from the World Bank that gives us a postulation of what the economy will look like because of the current indicators that they have as a simulation from other countries and what their expertise tells them from their perspective. Do we question this? Do we go back to our own data? We know about the youth bulge you've talked about. We know that we have a lot of people who are not employed right now, who should be employed, who are graduates, who would be able to improve the economy. Are they taking those statistics into consideration when some of the decisions are made? We know, for example, that we have the Kenya Health Information System that gives us all the data you've talked about, the renal cases, the maternal cases, what is not happening. And yet we're allowing other people to be the providers of this data for us. So I think one of the things I just want to put out there is, yes, there's evidence, but I think we also need to critically look at the evidence and see whether it is contextual to our setting and be brave enough to say, I think we need another look at this. I think it's okay. Researchers are always people who will say that is not our data. They are trained to say that. And I think this is another culture we want to hopefully infuse and say, we need to have a little bit of a step back and look again at this data that then you are using to give us information and insights on how we should make important national decisions. The disconnect you talked about, Arthur, is then, how then do we communicate this data? Researchers, Professor, thank you very much, I agree. 100% there's a disconnect between researchers and the policy-making space. But then why is this disconnect there? As a legislative person or someone in policy, it is taxing for me to go to the New England Journal of Medicine where you have published your data, for me to go and find out what is the current state of maternal health, because that is where you decided to disseminate the data. Can we have this data available in fact sheets? Can we be intentional at putting out dashboards saying this is for the legislators, it is tailored towards these counties because this is where the research took place, and we are providing it for free, but in a manner that does not make people look for a needle in a haystack? I
do not think that Honorable Miri will have 1 hour before a crucial decision to read through a journal. And I just want to understand from you, Mr. Mathoko, how you help our parliamentarians access data and evidence quickly for their decision making.
Thank you, Arthur. And if you look at you follow the discourse here, it's about, it's still revolving around supply and the demand of evidence between the practice out there and the policy making process. I totally agree with what Honorable Kiamba talked about. Sometimes Parliament can be very complex for you, but I've tried to explore a lot about the supply and the demand side. And one of the discourse that was going on right now is about communicating the evidence. Yeah? How do you communicate the evidence that fits into the policy making? It becomes very difficult because for the researchers, the academia, and other practitioners out there, they tend to sit and watch from the sidelines. They don't want to come into the policy-making arena to have that evidence which is there to be consumed in Parliament. The other thing is the divergent priorities. Whoever is funding these research or evidence or data collection out there may not align themselves to the policy making environment, and therefore that really makes the context with which the data out there is not may not be palatable to the policy making ecosystem of Parliament. Then you come to the demand side. From what I say, there has to be some engagement procedures, and that's why I said about us being given strategic objective by the Parliamentary Service Commission to forge these strategic partnerships. But then, how do you go about engaging? Because sometimes the kind of data out there may not fit into what we want, but somehow we try. The other thing is competing priorities. We have so many competing priorities when it comes to what needs to be used as evidence in Parliament and what the politics of the day are. So you can have very good evidence which is not utilized. The other thing is the institutional capacity. How do we institutionalize evidence use? And if you look at the theories on evidence use by institutions, you'll find that institutionalization of evidence use has to be there. But how do you do that? You have to have frameworks within the institution, and that's why we exist as PRS. Then come to the executive dominance and bureaucracy. Most of the data in many countries really will be about the government, and we have that distrust between the executive and the legislature, which sometimes may make you not able to access much of the key evidence that you need. And I have experience before the 2010 Constitution. I would be very much welcome to walk into any government ministry and get a lot of information. When we went to bicameralism and presidential system, today I have to use my usual networks to get some of the information or data that I need. Unlike before, when we had members of parliament being in the executive and so forth. So that is a dilemma we face. Coming back to what Honorable Meli and Kiamba has talked about almost quitting immediately the joint parliament. It is a problem we face in many legislatures, member turnover. The moment member turnover is high, and when the new parliament comes in, there is always that period of members trying to navigate around. By the time you are realizing, I need to use evidence, and there is an area where I can get this information within the parliament itself, is in the third year, and by that time you're almost focusing on how the ground is. So we have all these, but we are available for any assistance. I know at some point you use PRS products and services. Thank you very much.
has raised. I'm just going to give you 1 minute, a strict 1 minute, and then we can do the wrap up.
Thank you. I mentioned that I worked with Kipra, where the policy analysis and proposals are done. At that point, I was feeling quite frustrated that, with all due respect, members, I was just feeling that these are our members. They don't understand these things. We are giving very clear proposals, and they are not doing nothing about it. But now, on this side, I still understand their frustrations. Now, straight to the question. At the CPST, we are modeling a course, a training, a seminar. We will be delivering it to members and all interested parties in a form of a seminar, what we call translating policy into legislation. That gap exists, and we've all acknowledged. We saw the gap, and being the mandated institution to train, to expose members to this bit of information, it's something that we are working very hard on as part of the capacity development that we want to do for our members, for our colleague staffs, so that that gap is actually narrowed, hopefully eliminated. How do we translate all these beautiful policy proposals into legislation? Because not all proposals would require legislation or would lead to legislation. So we are working on that. We hope that would help.
This is better? Okay. So I'm saying at KHF, we are willing to give insight on input data, process data, and the outcome data. And my commitment is, and I'll want to give it to the women parliamentarians. Please call on us. Let's meet quarterly and have our fingers on the pulse on what is happening. You will summon the CS, you will summon the PSAs and even SAGA bosses, but you will get information from one side. We are not getting information from what the industry is actually saying. They say they have dashboards. I don't know whether you have access to those dashboards so that you're able to monitor even at facility level, just like you were saying, like in the school data. We now have that information at SHA. The second thing is we must like ourselves as Kenyans. There are many instances I really question whether we like ourselves. When we are doing renovations, when we are buying motor vehicles, when we are buying guns for the executive, we go for best in class. When it comes to health, we want to talk about resource limited setting. I can't wrap my head around that. The other thing is we are Africa's largest non-mineral economy, meaning that our people are what bring value into the economy. If health is not working, we are not able to put man hours into the economy, and we are not able to afford school days for our children, and the impact is direct on that. So we must be very deliberate in how we are looking at things. And I will grab some 30 more seconds to say that if you look at the macroeconomics that we are facing, I think they've been fairly okay. The shilling has been stable. We have single-digit interest rates. We just need to work on a couple of things. We need to work on our energy. We need to work on how we are, what we are producing. For every 4 containers that are coming into the country, only 1 is leaving. So we need to look at that balance of trade, which has been on a deficit at about 10 billion Kenya shillings. Health is the 6th largest and the 6th fastest growing supported services sector, as per what the PS Treasury has reported. And that is against receiving only 47% of what has been allocated to it in the budget. So how do we bridge that gap is a question I will want us to work together. I am a Kenyan, and I have a passion for the country, and that is why I believe we are having this conversation. And much as we come from private sector, where the conversation of profits is hard, I think profits are good. It's what you do with them that is either good or bad, and they are contributing to the economy. So I will give my commitment that each time I'm called upon, I will respond, and I will bring the relevant information that is needed for us to take the tough decisions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Nyawira, I'm just going to give you like 50 seconds. We cannot talk about all these things without touching on AI in this information era. Can you just say something about how maybe we can leverage artificial intelligence to address some of these things that we are dealing with for within 50 seconds?
Thanks, Arthur. And I think you're right. The crux and what's looking like will be the end point of data and evidence moving forward will be artificial intelligence. I think I'd want to leave maybe the podium with 3 A's. I call them the 3 A's. Every time we think about artificial intelligence, let's remember it is a good thing. It makes life efficient. It moves tasks, and people are able to concentrate on more strategic things. However, we live in an age where we have something we call algorithmic bias. It's rubbish in, rubbish out. And so it's only as good as the data that was used to write it. If you ask AI right now for show me a child, a picture of a child in Africa, I don't know, name Lilongwe or wherever, they will show you a child being eaten by flies who has a protruding stomach. That is what AI was fed to believe, isn't it? That's the data, that was what has been in the media. So again, let us criticize and look at the AI outputs that we get and ensure that they're contextualized. As researchers, we're working very hard to ensure that we have data quality, that then when they train these models, give us correct data. But on our end, as people who are in policy, let us be critical about that. I think the second A for me is accountability. We're doing very well as a country. We have our AI strategy in place. We have recognized that we need to put guardrails, because what happens when someone is using an algorithm, who do they complain to when it gives them a figure they're supposed to pay that, for example, is not really reflective of where they are representatively. We are now moving into, having, people type in and pay for SHA and pay for other things, but these are algorithms. So how do we put aside guardrails? How do we ensure that we're implementing these guardrails that have been put in? And I think the third A that I want to talk about is just the bit that talks about, maybe that's not an A, but power, the power descent. Let's remember that we need to always contextualize our data and think through how are we going to ensure we have political goodwill to make the moves that you're talking about. And this is what AI can do. It can be able to harmonize a lot of data, use data from other areas to simulate what this will look like. We don't need to use census data that was 10 years ago. There are AI platforms that can allow us to know what is the future going to look like tomorrow. So let's be careful in terms of also being able to use that. So that's, for me, Arthur, is my parting shot around how to maybe navigate the AI space in this day and age.
I've seen the positive and sometimes I see the negative. So we keep oscillating, but there is hope. And I'll probably end by saying that, using data and evidence should be a common sense thing that sometimes we don't do, but should be common sense. We shouldn't even be sitting here talking about it. It's like basically saying, should I wear a dress when I'm going out? If you don't wear a dress, really, you should be taken to a hospital. But I just want to give an example that when I was working in the civil society, we did a research on trafficking against persons. And when we first raised an alarm about trafficking in persons, I remember people told us, these are NGOs that are trying to look for donor funding. And many people didn't even know what trafficking was. And we did a research that showed the figures. And today, because I came into Parliament using that data, we have the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act, and there's a fund for that, even though the money, I doubt they're putting sufficient money in it yet, because I've been raising it in the Budget Committee. I don't see it there anymore. But what I want to say, and that's what I was telling Susan, that it may get frustrating, but you have an excellent opportunity. There are over 50 million Kenyans who don't have the rare opportunity to sit in policy making and legislation making. So as much as it's frustrating, you get to make change. And I can tell you a million of changes that I've had, and I feel very humbled that I've been in this space and I've been able to make those changes. So it may be frustrating, but you make moves. So what we need to do is find the connectedness so that when we are talking about this data, and especially in the era of AI, and things moving supersonic speed, at supersonic speed. So members of parliament need to be facilitated to be, AI friendly, AI knowledgeable, and to move at the same space. Mercifully, we have younger members of parliament, and also find ways of reaching beyond this. Like there are members who may be very interested in this, but maybe because of where they are. So maybe having a mixed system, a hybrid system of engagement with members. I know it makes sense when we sit here as well, because it encourages people. But if we have a hybrid system, that's how I've even gone back to do my PhD. Because if you expect me to be running physically to whatever, it's impossible. But because I have that system, I sit in my class in New York, in Suba North, while meeting with the president, I'm in my class. So we need to know that technology has changed the way we do things, and we need to move with the technology.
Member of Parliament for Naivasha constituency, Vasha, that's how we call it. I'm glad to be here. This interaction is very, very important. And there is data all over. Let's say that we have a shortage of data. But our priorities are always wrong. That road in Suba North always needed to be tarmacked. But now, Honorable Miri is on the right side of politics, because everything is politicized here. That is why that data, we have basic data. I'm a resident of Naivasha. But if you ask Dr. Deuri, do you want to build those houses for the sick? He would go for medical health. How is our health doing? So I think, Mheshimiwa Mili, I was in Parliament before we had CDF. And before we had CDF, it's because anything that you wanted, that data, that project you wanted to do, you'd either do a harambe or do it yourself, and it was not possible because there was one answer, that yes, we need that road when funds become available. So that was a common statement. So I think this is about priorities, and we have to differentiate, because politics, Dr. Nyawera is talking about WEF, Women Enterprise Fund. But because we are mixing development with politics, that fund slowed down because of Hustler Fund. Hustler Fund was politics. Because there was a woman who was getting 300,000, 1 million, because that's how it goes. So when you bring Hustler Fund, you tell them that you're going to give them 500 shillings. You know, all these things. We must differentiate politics from the real issues. That is why you're going to have that housing project. And there's somebody pushing a deal, just like you had said. There are people who are pushing deals. So you want that housing project, there's somebody else pushing. Daktari have issues. Look at the unpaid bills, the system of, I think we need to be honest with ourselves. That yes, we have all the information, we have all the data, but then what are we doing with that data? Is it because we are on the right side of politics? Now, because you are in broad-based, you'll get everything. Yeah? Because now I have pulled out of KK, then I'll not get anything. You see, how do we distribute? Yes, Parliament has data. I was in Parliament in 2003 when these researchers came to be. And they're doing a good job. So all the research is here. But where is the will, the political will, to do it?
Honorable, are you trying to say you don't listen to data as parliamentarians? Okay, I'm going to take the last intervention from our honorables, but maybe anyone who wants to do just 30 seconds, because I think we have spent some time here, but anyone behind, 30 seconds. All right, will you manage 30 seconds? No, it's not going to be a question, just a comment. Is that okay? Great, I recognize him. By the way, I'm practicing for the days when I'll be Speaker of Parliament.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to add to my two colleagues and our Honorable Millie, whom we really love and has been a mentor to all of us. Data. We have been discussing about data and who is the consumer, who is the implementer. And I've been listening, and I think we need to tell ourselves, this data is available. Researchers have done a lot of work. You have done a lot of that work. But how is it consumed? Who is consuming it? Who is the generator of data? I want to talk about the MPs. They are a jack of all trades. They are the source of data. They are the implementers. They are the people who follow the process. They are the policy makers when they are supposed to be actually legislating and appropriating funds for this work. So we need to have, I think this conversation should bring on board all the stakeholders, so that even as we speak about it, then everybody will be ticking at their box. Who is supposed to do what? Who is supposed to do what? Because if you look at data, the researchers have done the data. We have the policy makers, who are mainly the executive, who are supposed to be the implementers. Let me tell you what parliamentarians do. Apart from legislating and doing all the other work, they have to follow up with the executive to ensure that that work is done in their constituencies. They have to collect data from their constituencies to see how much is needed where. A borehole here, a school here, a what here, and at the same time, keep following offices. And to me, when I came in, just like my colleague said, I thought I would just come to Parliament, then do what I'm supposed to be doing. But now, it pains me when I have to follow an executive person who is supposed to have data and knows what is supposed to be in every constituency, so that they can distribute equitably the resources and the work in terms of implementation. It shouldn't, nobody should be followed up to do what they are supposed to do. So if the executive, if the policy makers take up their work, consume the data, and actually do what they are supposed to do, then it will make work very easy. Because I'm looking at, give me just 1 minute. I'm looking at the outcome, because that is the community.
As the speaker of this room.
The consumers, thank you.
All right, I would like you to wind up.
Thank you, I'm just winding up.
Yeah.
Because she talked about outcome, and she was very frustrated about it. When this is done, even this research as you do it, you also need to do a public participation, so that as you do as you collect the research on data, then it should be coming from the community, from the users, the consumers, so that it comes from the consumers down upwards. Then you can go down again to take back the implementation. Then that way we will have a monitoring and evaluation team, the M&E team now, giving us the outcome. That out of all the data and the research that you did, it has flown round, and this is now the outcome. Thank you.
A very big hand for our honorable. And then our aspiring honorable. I'm giving you 30 seconds.
Thank you.
And then to say you can usher us to the next layer. But our panelists keep sitting there, because we need a picture. And yeah.
Thank you. My name is Charles Oyaya. I work for the International Development Institute Africa. Just a very quick one. If we are to use data and evidence, we must be intentional about it. And I was just asking myself, we have a research office within Parliament and National Assembly. And I was just wondering how much we have invested in that department. What is the budgetary allocation? How do they link with each and all members to know what exactly they need and to provide that evidence as appropriate, both internally and also in relation to other external agents? Thank you.